There's a combination of things that are lowering the deposit supply. And what does that do? That creates a dollar squeeze. And when you have enough of a dollar squeeze, some weak bank somewhere collapses. And when that happens, you have even more of a dollar squeeze because people panic. The question is, what's the next bank to fall? And what's the next group to fall behind that? And it's coming, because that's what happens when the Fed stops printing money. We don't know where that fault line is, that if you cross that line, you create a crisis. But it's there. It's there. And we're headed towards it. You just got to wait for the trigger.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty in Finance, and this is the Miles Franklin Weekly Special for May 30th through June 6th, 2023, while supplies last. This week we feature the 2023 quarter-ounce Noah's Ark silver coins at $3.25 over melt per coin, and Ital Preziosi 10-ounce silver bars at just $3.49 over spot per ounce. Minted by the famed Geiger Mint in Germany, the quarter-ounce Noah's Ark silver coins are sovereign coins of Armenia, with a face value of 100 dram, and a great way to get fractional silver for a significantly lower premium than you would normally pay. Next, our Ital Preziosi 10-ounce silver bars not only maintain a great level of liquidity, but also boast one of our lowest premiums in several months, at $3.49 over spot per ounce. They come individually numbered, are available in any quantity, and come 52 a box. Our specials this week are IRA eligible, and if you'd like to learn more about a precious metals IRA, call us, and we'll be happy to help you in that process. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty in Finance. We were delighted to get this returning guest to come back on. Rafi Farber is the founder of the Endgame Investor. He joins us this Thursday, June 1st, 2023. Rafi, thanks for coming back on Liberty in Finance.
Hey, Dunnigan, good to be back.
Always appreciate your visits here. And as I've said before, and I'll say it again, the comments are uniformly appreciative and recognizing of basically the weight of perspective and thought that you bring to the topics that we ask you about and the topics that you raise here. So we're grateful. Our viewers are always grateful for your presence here. One thing I wanted to ask you about was because in this week's weekly market update and last week's with Andy Schechtman, he's been pointing out that there are still record physical silver deliveries being taken off not only Western exchanges, but even off the Shanghai exchange. And I remembered a story from not that long ago of your difficulties, actually heroic struggle, and finally just coming up against a brick wall of trying to take physical delivery of COMEX silver bars from, I believe maybe it was the SLV fund. Maybe you'll straighten us out about that. But the point that he makes is that if this is happening in such record, never before seen quantities right now, and his thesis is that it's the very well funded and well informed people who are on the very top or higher up on the food chain than ordinary mortals, then I thought it might be helpful for you to remind all of us about who yourself, as having more skills and more insight and more inside knowledge than perhaps the average person, what you ran up against trying to take physical delivery, and therefore if it's happening somewhere higher up the food chain. Okay.
Well, my experience was pretty much a circus. I don't even remember all the details, but it was just it was a comedy, an unintentional comedy. I have a video about this on my YouTube channel. I think if you put in YouTube Rafi Farber COMEX, I think you'll find it somewhere. But once I got funding for it, I was able to get delivery of the warrant after a lot of back and forth with the broker, and the broker that I use is Interactive Brokers. If you want to try to get physical delivery, like actual bars you could hold in your hand from the COMEX, do not use Interactive Brokers. It is impossible. You will not be able to do it. I was able to get what they call physical delivery of the warrant. And the difference between a contract and a warrant is that a contract is a theoretical 5,000 ounces, and a warrant is a right to 5 specific 1,000 ounce bars of silver that are earmarked for you. And once you have the warrant, then you have to do something called loading out, which Interactive Brokers does not actually do. Now, getting the warrant was it was a joke. because every time that I requested delivery, they canceled the order like 5 or 6 times until I insisted. And like I threatened them, and then they were like, "Okay, fine, you'll get the warrant." But then I couldn't load it out. They said, "We don't do that. We're not going to talk to you anymore, and we'll shut down your account if you ask anymore." They didn't actually say I was going to shut down my account, but like they were not very cooperative. So what I found out is that if you want to actually do that, you have to be in a friendly brokerage which has connections with the COMEX and has some kind of relationship with them. I don't even remember the term anymore. Maybe it's because I'm losing my mind, but or I'm intentionally trying to forget what happened. But there are. I think R.J. O'Brien is one of them. But in order to, it was traumatic a little bit because I was trying to when I found out that I couldn't load out, then I had to liquidate the warrant, and that also required extra margin that I had to put out. And then I had trouble selling the warrant, so I wasn't even sure at any given point that I would get the liquidity back, and I would be stuck with this warrant that I couldn't do anything with. Eventually, I got it back, and I happened to make a profit on the trade, which I wasn't even trying to do. So, but yeah, don't use interactive brokers. You could try to use R.J. O'Brien, I think, is one of the brokerages that does loading out. But in order to use them, you have to have either $1 million or $2 million in capital or some number like that. So you have to be very rich, and then you have to go through the ringer, and you'll get some unwanted attention from maybe the government or the IRS, maybe. And I don't know if you want to deal with that, but it's a nightmare. You don't want to do it. But about the record amounts coming out of COMEX, that's true and it's not true. There are true aspects to that statement. It's not a false statement because since Silver Squeeze in February 1st, 2021, we all remember that day. So at that point, there was 152 million ounces in registered silver. Registered silver is silver that is registered for sale against futures contracts. Like that's what's for sale on the futures market. It was 152 million ounces. That was a record high, and now we are down to 28 million ounces. So that's a lot. It's 130 million ounces that are now off the market since Silver Squeeze. There are still more eligible ounces, but those ounces are in storage. They're not for sale. They might become for sale, but they're not for sale now. And I think 103 million of those ounces are owned by SLV, and a lot of them are owned by IRA retirement accounts. We don't really know exactly who owns what in that. So yeah, we're close to a record low amount of silver that is for sale now against futures, 28 million now, and I think the record low is 22 million, so we're almost there. But then again, we don't know who owns the silver in storage. It could never come for sale. It could be by stackers. It could be a combination of ETF stackers and other people, banks, or whatever. We just don't know. So it's still record amounts that are no longer for sale since Silver Squeeze, and that can't be denied. It's a good direction to go in, and eventually the big players that are in charge of this, that have direct access to the COMEX, they're going to know what's going on, and they're going to rate it. I don't know exactly when, but whoever has access, and somebody has access, they're going to take whatever they can when they realize that the dollar is dying.
You know, in addition to that, we've been hearing a lot over the past month, in particular in the U.S., about this debt ceiling and potential for a default from the government, and we've almost gotten numb to it in the U.S. because it's happened so many times, and it feels like it's just a show. Like you go through the script and you have all this bantering back and forth, and eventually, of course, the debt ceiling gets raised because the debt is only going to go one way, and that's up. And it seems to be an example of what a number of guests recently have talked about, which is this Hegelian dialectic of thesis, antithesis, and then synthesis. It's like you've got team blue that says, oh, we need to spend for all these important reasons, and you got team red that plays the role of those saying, oh, no, we mustn't, and it doesn't matter. That Punch and Judy puppet show goes on, and the outcome is unaffected. The outcome is consistent. That is, the debt goes up, spending goes up, impoverishment of the people, destruction of the purchasing power of the currency, people's savings and earnings and retirements being plundered. Your thoughts on some outcomes of this whole this whole drama that might actually be impactful in terms of redemption of treasuries or treasuries coming home because of perhaps loss of confidence being engendered by this whole brouhaha. You have discussed that recently in other interviews. Could you bring us up to your latest thinking on that?
Right. Yeah. The debt ceiling is a complete show. And I'm not going to say that there are no honest people at all in Congress, but even the honest people that have a good heart and they really do want to do the right thing, and there are very, very few of those people, but even they, when it really comes down to it and they have to stand up alone against the sharks, they're not going to, right? I would say, look, right now, Rand Paul, who I would say is one of the very, very few in Congress that wants to do the right thing, but he's nowhere near as strong as his father was in terms of standing up to pressure and really pushing it. Like, he's pushed against Fauci, but nothing doing. Fauci's still out there. He says a lot of nice things, but he's not going to stand up. He could theoretically filibuster the debt ceiling agreement that averts default, and he could push it down for even a few days, even maybe a week or two, by filibustering it, getting a buddy or two to help him out, and then we could trigger a default, push over the bond market, and then try to clear out some of the garbage. But he's not going to do it. There's no. I seriously doubt. I would be very pleased if he did, but it's not going to happen. So yeah, it's all a show. Even the people that are not really part of the show, they become co-opted into the show, even if they don't want to. So yeah, it's all a bunch of nonsense. And the thing that I notice, and I'm in the middle of doing a show for a recording for Chris Marcus's channel on this topic, is what I really wanted to see, and I couldn't really think that they were going to stop the debt or even cut spending at all. But I did want to see the 87,000 IRS agents that were hired. I wanted them to get cut out, because that's seriously threatening, right? We have these intellectual ideas that we want to see the debt stop. Okay, fine. But like, if you're talking about somebody knocking on your door and threatening you with a gun, that's a little bit more down to earth, that you want that gone, and it's not gone. They were at 87,000 new agents, and the Republicans cut it down to 85,240. So there's 1,740 poor people who won't get to work for the IRS, and their children might not be able to eat food now or whatever. So it's horrible. But back to the intellectual point, because of this deal, there's going to be trillions of dollars in treasuries that are going to be dumped on the market over the next 2 or 3 months by the end of the quarter, and that doesn't just create money. They are sold for usually deposits from big banks. It's the big banks that buy these things and get the interest. So that's going to suck extra deposits out of the big banks, which are already being drained. Plus, you have the Fed doing QT, quantitative tightening, so they're not providing the liquidity. And you also have tax day for corporations on June 15th. Plus, part of the debt ceiling is, I just learned this from Zero Hedge, part of the debt ceiling is a suspension of the hiatus, the continuing paying back student loan debt, right? So that gets paid back to the government and out of the money supply again. So you have four directions, and because of this debt ceiling deal, that liquidity is going to be sucked out of the markets, which last time that happened in September 2019 caused a seizing up of the repo markets. Is that going to happen again? I don't know, because we have reverse repos now, 2.2 trillion of those still floating around. We didn't have that in September 2019. But basically, what we could say is happening is there's a lot of rumbling going on in the monetary sewage dungeons, and we don't know where everything is going to flow. And you got to be prepared now and not guess exactly what the flows are going to be, because we really don't know.
You mentioned in passing there that this will put additional pressure on banks. Can you talk to us about your assessment of where we stand in the unfolding banking crisis that's been going on for about a quarter now in the U.S.? and in Europe as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot to say about this, and different people are focused on different aspects of it, and can interview different people. Like we're talking about people who are walking around in a dark room feeling different aspects of an elephant, and one saying, "Oh, it's like a wall," the other one saying, "Oh, it's like a tail," or feeling the trunk and saying different parts of it, but we don't all know what it is that we're looking at. So what I am seeing, at least, is that the myth of deposits being sucked out of small banks and going into big banks as protection, that's not true. It can't be true, because if you look at deposits in small banks and deposits in big banks, it's the deposits from the big banks that are draining even faster than the small banks. The small banks have stabilized. The big banks are still draining out. The question is, what are they draining out to? It looks like they're draining out to reverse repos, which are not part of the monetary system. They're back at the Fed, and then they get interest from that. So money is being drained from small banks and big banks out of the monetary system entirely. And I think also part of that is a default on some credit card debt, maybe, or the canceling out of debt or the paying back of debt without the issuance of new debt, which also lowers deposits and lowers the money supply. There's a combination of things that are lowering the deposit supply. And what does that do? That creates a dollar squeeze. And when you have enough of a dollar squeeze, some weak bank somewhere collapses. And when that happens, you have even more of a dollar squeeze because people panic. So the question is, what's the next bank to fall, and what's the next group to fall behind that? And it's coming, because that's what happens when the Fed stops printing money. It just depends at what time. And I think from the peak money supply, I think in April 2022 to now, I think we've lost something like $3 trillion, and we have $3 trillion more to lose until we go back to the trajectory we were on before the 2020 lockdown printing. So there's still a lot of extra liquidity in the system. It's got to be sucked out, and we don't know where that fault line is. That if you cross that line, you create a crisis. But it's there. It's there. And we're headed towards it. Just got to wait for the trigger.
We've been talking about a lot of large systemic and global phenomenon that seem often beyond the reach of the ordinary person. One thing that ordinary people who are trying to do retail investing and basically transferring some of their assets out of this fragile, creaking house of cards of the banking system and get some of their assets out of fiat currency and that's being inflated and devalued, is to get into tangible assets, whether that's commodities or physical precious metals. One of the factors that's been mysterious to many people in the retail investing space of physical precious metals is this physical premium above spot. It's historically not been that dramatic. I mean, for decades there, a couple of dollars above spot for silver, maybe, or less, and tens of dollars above silver for gold, and you could obtain physical precious metals, 1 ounce coins, or that sort of thing. Since March of 2020, U.S. Silver Eagles, for one thing, the premiums have just skyrocketed up to sometimes 75% or more of the spot price, in addition to the spot price, to be able to get your hands on, take physical ownership of that investable class. You were mentioning to me that gold physical premiums have also started to move. And that's something that's been lagging for some time. There's been a saying in the past that Rick Rule often says, is that gold moves first and silver moves farther and faster. But gold has been kind of like a steady eddy here for some time, although it has been bumping up against and sometimes surpassing its previous nominal highs, but in spot price. But the premiums haven't been getting out of hand like the silver premiums did. Can you talk to us about what you're seeing and what you think it might mean?
Okay, well, one thing I want to clarify on the concept of a premium, there's two things. So for gold and silver markets specifically, because they are monetary metals, there's really two prices for gold and silver. There's the industrial price, or the price for these metals for industrial uses, and there's the monetary price. And it's the monetary price that we're all waiting for to be discovered. And we have an idea where it is because you can divide the Fed's balance sheet divided by the amount of gold and come up with a rough number. But what I mean is the industrial price, like gold bugs and silver bugs, we often complain about manipulation, and I don't deny that there's manipulation. I'm not saying like everything's honest. Don't don't accuse me of saying anything is honest. Nothing's honest. But we often say that there's manipulation, but what there really is, it's a bifurcated price. So the industrial price, there aren't any shortages in the jewelry market. It's not like if you go to buy your girlfriend or your wife a necklace or something, it's not going to be there, or there's going to be a shortage of it. There's enough gold jewelry out there, and there's enough gold for dental fillings and enough gold for electronics, and people can buy gold and use it for industrial purposes. There's no shortages. That means that the industrial price is basically correct. Okay, and that's the price that the futures market is tracking. It's mostly the industrial price. What the futures market cannot successfully track or cannot accurately track is the monetary price. And the reason is it's just basic logic. Why? Because what's the monetary demand for gold and silver if the dollar isn't working, and the dollar being a gold substitute? If the gold substitute doesn't work and you need actual gold to make transactions or actual silver, then what's the price? What's the demand? The demand is 100% of all humanity because everybody needs money in order to be part of the division of labor. And that you can't have a futures market that's denominated in paper that tracks that price at all, right? The fact that futures markets exist not denominated in gold but denominated in dollars means that price will never be discovered until the dollar is dead, by definition. So the essence of the futures market is itself manipulation. And there are little things that JP Morgan does, spoofing and whatever, that's peanuts. But the very existence of it is the problem. So what is a premium on that logic? A premium on that logic, you can more accurately see it as a discount for futures rather than a premium for physical, right? So if we really are, we do denominate our monetary thinking and philosophy in terms of gold and silver, then the proper way to think about a premium is really a discount on futures, right? And if the discount on futures is infinite, which means futures contracts are worthless because the dollars they're denominated in are worthless, then premiums are infinity. And you have to go back into denominating prices in terms of ounces of gold rather than in dollars because the price would be infinity. So it's the same thing, right? When premiums go to infinity, that's the death of the dollar. So the higher premiums go, the closer we are to that, and it waves up and down and stuff. So anyway, what I saw recently, even just today, is that across the board, physical premiums for gold specifically have jumped an entire percentage point in like a day or two. I don't know. It could be 3 days. I haven't checked. I don't check them every day, so I don't know when this started. But they across the board, all the popular 1 ounce coins, 1 ounce gold coins, the premiums have jumped faster than they ever have in a short amount of time. And they're not at record highs yet, but I don't know exactly what is causing this. But it's got to be either it could be a glitch, it could be just incorrect. I don't think it is, because I went to all these sites, AppMex, Miles Franklin, other sites, to see what they're actually charging, and the calculation according to the charts that I saw is basically correct. So something's happening. Don't know exactly what. Could have something to do with the banks. Could have something to do with debt ceiling. But I'm not a head honcho or a big macher in banks, so I don't know what they're doing. Maybe they're doing something. But you can still get your physical. You should still do that if you haven't yet, and wait for some kind of tectonic shift, which is coming. And the last thing I'll say is that I saw this kind of spike in premiums once for Krugerrands. I think it's September 2022, but it lasted just a day or two, and it was only in Krugerrands. This time it's in all of them, and also in silver. Euro Philharmonics or something. Maybe it was Maple Leafs. One of these silver premiums jumped like 5 or 6% in a day. That could be related to it. Other silver premiums climbed a little bit in the last few days, but nowhere near as much as gold did. Maybe some big bank is stacking, or we'll see in the next few days.
One of the things you touched on briefly there is people. If you haven't got any, you should. Could you remind us of your thinking and your calculus around their philosophy behind it, on how much is enough for an individual who's trying to take good care of their family, their household, maybe their extended family, to plan for of their investable net worth in tangible assets, including monetary metals, gold and silver?
Okay, well, there's no one answer to this, but my general answer is you want, in assuming you understand that gold is money and silver is also money, but it's much more volatile because we're really on a gold system and not a silver system, and the function of silver is the ultimate gold substitute. So when gold substitutes generally work, when the dollar is working, it's much more convenient to transact in dollars than it is in silver coins. But if the dollar doesn't work at all, which means no fiat currency works at all because all fiat currencies are based on the dollar, that's when silver regains its monetary ratio, and then it should be around 15 or 20 to 1. And for those few weeks, months, maybe a year at most, silver will have its maximum purchasing power. So what I do, I can't say what anyone else should do. What I do is I have enough physical silver to last my family for about a year of expenses based on, a 15 to 1 ratio, assuming, because that's what it would be. That's what it would be if I had to use it in an emergency. And if you want to sleep better at night and not worry about the volatile price of silver, and you understand that gold is money and you'll be okay with it, then you should have as much as you need that you won't worry about the rest of your portfolio if it goes to zero, and you'll know you'll be okay for, a few years. And you shouldn't have so much that if gold, crashes 10, 20% in a few days, which does happen from time to time, that you won't freak out and sell it because you need liquidity. So you want to be always between wanting to chase and panicking selling out. You want to always be in the middle road, so you're not freaking out in either direction, either with greed or fear. And that changes with people who have different understandings, different emotional boundaries, and different psychological makeup. So what I say to people is, imagine the worst case scenario for you. You have X percent of gold or silver, and gold or silver goes down, let's say 20% in a week. Are you okay? Can you sleep? Are you doing all right? And if the answer is no, then you should have less. And the other side is, let's say gold and silver start going crazy and the end game is approaching and everyone's freaking out and chasing the stuff. Are you chasing too? Or you say, okay, I got enough. Now I'll just let it ride. If you're scared and you say, oh no, I have to buy now because I don't want to miss the move, then you don't have enough now. You should get more now before the move. Always be in a place that no matter how extreme the move is, you kind of just want to sit back and relax.
It's interesting because you're making me recall a time about a decade ago where there was some concern about the stock markets, and my wife had told me, let's just lighten off. We basically got out of the stock market, and it was more than a decade ago. And then there was a big drop in the stock market, and I reminded her, hey, honey, we're not participating in this. Oh, okay, good. So, yeah, that's important to already be in the place that you want to be, so that when the big thing happens, you don't have to try to make your move at that point, because it's likely not to be possible, and it's certainly extremely likely to be inefficient or not cost effective to do it at that time.
Yeah. And also it's probably just not good for your mind or your soul to constantly be scared or greedy. It's just better to just be calm about it. And that's not really the stereotype that gold and silver bugs have, where we people generally think of us as like kooky and emotional and crazy. But the reality is actually the opposite. We're the most even though we're the doomers and gloomers and whatever that we say about the world and its ending, etc. We're pretty calm about it. I would think, at least our circles, and that's what we're trying to maintain. And hopefully we can enter the end of this monetary system as calm as possible and be able to communicate with each other and figure out how to rebuild what is melting down now in the most rational way that we can.
Another thing you mentioned earlier, you said in passing earlier, if you don't have it and now you should. 99.5% of the people, according to Rick Rule, have no participation in precious metals or precious metals related equities. So that means when those people wake up, or even some of them wake up, even a few of them wake up, it'll probably be too late to make a reasonable or a rational move at that point. So being positioned ahead of that is the way to, as you mentioned, inner peace, sanity, maintaining stability. Any just last thoughts from, as long as we're on that topic, and I've just come through a health challenge that I'm recovering from, thank God, but it brought right to the heart of the matter for us in our household, how health kind of trump, your spiritual health and your physical health are so far more important than possessions in most cases. And any thoughts you have to add to that before we wrap?
Mm-hmm. Well, you're talking about physical and spiritual health. Inflation is not just a monetary phenomenon. If you look into what American society and Western society and pretty much all societies that suffer from inflation throughout history have become, everything is inflated. We have educational structures, these scaffoldings of universities and a scientific method that has certain steps that are all inflated, that have no content. We have food that is inflated, that has very little nutritional value unless you know what you're looking for and you look for local farmers and stuff. The food system, and we see how they're trying to inflate it even more by getting us to eat bugs and fake meat and all this stuff. And we have inflated education, inflated health, inflated medicine. I won't say anything else about that, but we all know what that is. Everything is inflated.
Can we substitute, in part of making sure I'm understanding and that we're understanding your philosophy here correctly, could we substitute dishonest for inflated in most of those sentences?
Yeah, well, inflation is just another word for lying about how much of something you actually have and pretending you have more of it. So yeah, dishonest. You could just say dishonest. But it all starts from the money, because in order to inject dishonesty into these other systems, you got to bribe them with inflated money. It all starts there. So with the hyperdeflation or hyperinflation, which is really two sides of the same coin, pun intended, you would see the deflation or the honesty returning in all other systems. And when you have hyperdeflation and prices changing, what it is it's just the revelation of reality of the real price array. How much do things actually cost in actual resources that you can actually trade for, instead of in exchange for resources that somebody just makes up and aren't actually there. So a return to honest money would be a return to honest medicine, honest education, honest food. And so there's no reason to be doom and gloom about it. We're going through a rough period, but everything always returns to balance. You just don't want to be part of what is eliminated when that balance is returned. You want to be in balance now, so you can just stay where you are.
We interviewed Francis Hunt, and he talks about when you have corporate right-sizing, that usually means downsizing. And he says we're going through a global corporation, a global right-sizing, and they're going to try to downsize the population, downsize the food supply, downsize our standard of living, downsize our ability to travel, downsize all kinds of things. And we also, on the opposite end of the spectrum, we interview people like Joel Salatin about farming. We've interviewed husband-wife teams that are doing homestead-type farming to get so connected to the real things of life, where their food actually comes from. They know it's got the nutritional value. They know it's safe for their family, that sort of thing. So people who are taking steps directly in their lives now to just basically step off that merry-go-round of dishonesty, of inflated everything that you've talked about, and reduce their dependence on the medical system, reduce their dependence on the financial system, and so on. Very interesting to see. It's inspiring to see people taking physical steps in their lives to make their lives based on real things, real relationships, real friends, real family, and instead of these ersatz substitutes that we've been sold at a bill of goods, which are increasingly consuming more and more of our livelihood and not leaving us any better off.
Yeah, that's going to be the pattern of success, and it is the pattern of success. Instead of striving to be part of the big system because they bribe you with whatever benefits, disconnect from it and create a small circle of interdependent people that can trade with each other with skills that you can learn, not with a degree as part of the system, but you can just learn from actual people, whether it's farming or alternative medicine or anything that is useful, because the system isn't teaching any of that. And it's an incredible opportunity, but it requires the unplugging from the giant system that has been corrupted. And it requires faith in yourself, faith in God, or faith in some kind of spiritual guidance, whatever it is that you might believe in, something higher than yourself, basically, and to move forward and know that you're doing the right thing. It's hard, but once you go on that path, there's really no turning back. That is the proverbial red pill or blue pill. I forgot what color. It's one of the pills.
Red pill, yeah. And I think that one of the things you mentioned is you say it's hard, but we've been sold a lie that it's so hard, don't even try, it's not worth it, don't worry. But frankly, staying on the hamster wheel of pointless chasing after these ephemeral promises of safe and effective or healthier or better or cheaper, whatever, is actually harder, because we're basically squandering our life energy and our lifeblood towards things that are really not going to benefit. They're really working against our better interest and that of our family. So it's actually not harder. We've just been told it's harder. It's different. It just takes forming new habits, and that is challenging for until we make a habit of that, forming new habits. Rafi, if people want to follow your work on the Endgame Investor, where should they get connected?
You can just put in the Endgame Investor into any search engine. You'll find it. It's on Seeking Alpha. I write about 3 to 4 times a week. You can follow me on YouTube at Rafi Farber, or you can become my patron on Patreon. And I give a weekly biblical commentary on these issues, what I find during the week. And, people don't usually think that there's a lot of monetary policy in the Bible, but there definitely is. There's a lot about that. And so I go on that once a week. And I'm on Twitter, and I'm also on Chris Marcus's YouTube channel once a week with the Silver Report, so tune in there.
If you don't want to miss a single episode with Rafi or any of our other guests, make sure you sign up for our free newsletter too at libertyandfinance.com. You just go to libertyandfinance.com, put in your name, your email address, click submit. You have to confirm on the confirming email, and then you'll get 1 email per day in your inbox with our latest guest, including Rafi, and our weekly specials as well at Miles Franklin. Rafi, on behalf of all of our viewers, just thanks for joining us here on Liberty and Finance.
Thanks, Dunnigan. Looking forward to be back again.
Miles Franklin Precious Metals is one of America's oldest and most trusted bullion dealers. Miles Franklin is A+ rated and accredited by the Better Business Bureau, licensed and bonded, and has 0 complaints ever registered. Here at Liberty and Finance, we are licensed brokers with Miles Franklin. To order, simply call us, discuss your needs, and we can let you know our live inventory, prices, and availability, and lock in your order over the phone. Once your order is locked, the price is held for you regardless of market fluctuations, and the metals are reserved for you awaiting your settled payment. Within 1 business day of ordering, you will receive an email invoice detailing the order and payment instructions. Miles Franklin accepts payments by bank wire, ACH or electronic check, money order, check mailed priority mail, and cryptocurrency. The fastest forms of payment are bank wire and cryptocurrency. Upon settled payment, metals will ship out within 3 to 5 business days. You will receive tracking information via email. Domestic shipping charges are $15 for any order under 500 ounces of silver or 10 ounces of gold. For orders larger than that, domestic shipping is free. The package will be boxed, fully insured, and labeled discreetly, with no indication of the contents inside. For your privacy, the name Miles Franklin will not even be on the package. To talk to myself, Kaiser, my brother Elijah, or my father Dunnigan, call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.